Great. Okay, so let's get started. Good day, everybody, and thank you for joining. We are very excited to be starting with day 2 of our association journeys. Yesterday was a very informative session, and we look forward to hearing from the associations today. A little bit of housekeeping. Our presenters only have 12 minutes to present, and we will cut them off after 12 minutes to ensure it's fair throughout the day. And they will also be presenting themselves and their association as we work through the program. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Alushca, the president of the World Federation of Tourist Guide Associations. And with me, I have our head of training and executive board member, Viola, who will be sharing the day with me today. We also have our tech support, Sebastian and his team. So thank you, Sebastian. And then, of course, our presenters for today. A reminder, if you have any questions for the presenters, to please post it in the chat box, and the presenters will be able to ask each other questions in person as we go through the sessions. Also, please remember that we are streaming live on YouTube, and we will be sharing the link to today's recorded session to our members as well. We'll also be taking photographs throughout the session. So just a recap on the purpose of this session. The reason we're doing these association presentation is just to present an opportunity to our members, which will give them a way to share the challenges they've faced during this pandemic year. And a lot of them have come up with really great activities, and the way they've communicated with governments have realized success stories. So we want to hear how they have done this and what they have achieved. And as I said yesterday, we had some great ideas shared, and we'll learn from that. So this program is an environment that we want to inspire, we want to learn, and we want to acknowledge each other. So let's keep it a positive environment, and we'll see how today progresses, and then we look forward to day 3 as well. So let's start with the program. Firstly, we have the Turkish Union of Tourist Guide Chambers, TUREB, and I'll be handing over to their presenter as he will share his presentation and further information of what they've been up to. So good morning, Suat.
Myself, I think you can all hear me right now. Is it true? Okay. Thank you, Alushca. Thank you, all our attendees too. And I would like to wish you a very warm welcome from Turkey. And as you have said, we are here to tell you about our journey of 2020. Now, let me introduce you myself. I'm also the president of Union of Turkish Tourist Guides Chambers, and I will be presenting our journey for you today. Now, let me check if my slides are moving on. And I would like to introduce you to my team members with our executive board, Adem Biçer, Serhan Güngör, Ozan Sayın, and Sedat Bornovalı. So the executive board of TUREB consists of 5 people. And today I'm going to tell you some about us, about the meetings and contacts that we have done, about our challenges during COVID-19 period and proposals for solutions, and of course, our achievements. Now, TUREB is the only union in Turkey that represents Turkish tourist guides, but we consist of 13 chambers, and they are all found by the law number 6326. And as you may know, or some of you may know, TUREB was founded as an NGO in 1999, but then it modified as a public professional organization in 2013 after the enact of law number 6326. Today in Turkey, we have 11,182 tourist guides, and most of them are active, some of them are passive, staying passive for 2020. It's a choice that our colleagues can do during the year. And Turkish tourist guides are speaking 7 different languages, which is a very wide range. Also, who are curious about those kind of statistics, they can find it live on our web page. This is the map of Turkey, you can see our member chambers. As I said, there are 13 member chambers that are represented in Union of Turkish Tourist Guides chambers. Now, with the beginning of March, we just would like to attend to all the meetings that has been done during the COVID-19 process. TUREB is also a member of Turkish Tourism Advisory Council, so we were able to attend all of the meetings which are done with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism in Turkey, and we all proposed our solutions for the this hard process of the world is passing through. Now, Turkey launched a program against COVID-19, which is called as Safe Tourism Certificate. And according to that, as TUREB, we just launched an online pandemic education for all tourist guides. We have a system in Turkey that's called RBS. Mainly, RBS is the tourist guides database that serves only for tourist guides. No other person from outside can enter this system. And in this system, we have online pandemic education that every tourist guide needs to attend, and it's accessible 7/24. And also, all the hotels, for example, which has more than 50 rooms, need to apply to have Safe Tourism Certificate. This certificate is given by the international accrediting agencies. Now, also, we had a circular from the Ministry of Culture and Tourism regarding the code of conduct in tourist guiding practice during COVID-19 pandemic. And according to that circular, as you may know, as you can guess, every tourist guide needs to use masks and headsets during their tour program. And also in every museum, there are huge signs that shows how to avoid that pandemic, and every museum has its own precautions. Also, tourist guides in Turkey are formally accepted as an authority on COVID-19 during the COVID-19 pandemic throughout the tour that they are conducting. If anything happens to anyone, the responsible one is the tourist guide. In this period, we achieved to have an online video system that serves only to tourist guides, in which today you can find over 200 videos, which are educational videos on different subjects, just like art history, history, Byzantine history, Ottoman history, whatever you may look for, you can find on RBS video. And this was one of the most important possibly projects of TUREB, because as you may know, we were all stuck in, we were all locked down in our houses, and all that we had was our internet connection in order to also spend some time educating ourselves. So, and we launched an Android mobile device program for RBS. So RBS video is accessible through Android mobile devices, and very soon we will launch also the iOS version of our special program for tourist guides. In the meantime, I did not put a slide right here, but we asked for grants or some social helps for tourist guides. Unfortunately, we couldn't have a grant from the government, but for the very first time in Turkish history, the government released a loan with a very low interest to a specific freelance profession for tourist guides. 2,500 tourist guides applied for this loan, and fortunately 1,700 of them used that credit, and still we're not paying it back, but in a time we will be paying it back. And unfortunately, on the contrary of other European countries, Turkish government did not support freelance professions during that pandemic period. One of the most important actions, events of 2020 would be our National Tourist Guiding Academic Congress, which will be organized by TUREB, by our union, and it was dated to April, but of course, because of the process, we need to postpone it. At the 5th and 6th of November 2020, we will have an online congress, which is made by the academicians mainly. TUREB is the only authority to coordinate the practical domestic educational tours for tourist guide candidates. And also we were preparing to have much more of those tours because there are over 4,000 candidates in Turkey to be a tourist guide in university programs. And they all need to attend to those domestic educational tours that are organized by TUREB. We only managed to have one in August, and there were 175 attendees to our program. We used 7 different buses for everyone, so the cost was higher than ever expected, and also we implied every precaution that can be taken by any of the organizer, and fortunately we had no case of COVID-19 for 8 days doing this tour. Also, we need to do the foreign language exams for our candidates, but we need to postpone those too. We are looking for a solution to do those exams because at least there are 1,000 attendees to these exams too. In the meantime, TUREB renewed its FSAG membership also, I think, which can be considered as a good thing. And for the last but not the least, I want to give a message to all of our colleagues all over the world throughout this system. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you can fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. That's what we need to do in this process. The humanity is passing through a very hard time, as you all know, and unfortunately, we don't know what is ahead of us. But in Turkish, we had a saying that every day rises up with a new sun. So we should be hopeful for everything that we are having throughout our lives. Maybe this will be an experience that we need to share with all of our next generations. TUREB is found in almost in every social media, and we're always using the same address as TUREB official, both in Facebook, in Twitter, and on Instagram. And if anyone needs to reach us, they can use www.tureb.org.tr. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to listen for my other colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very informative. So we'll move on to the next presenter. And once we have done 4 presentations, we'll allow for questions from the attendees as well as between panelists. So our next presenter is Kristina from the Croatian Tourist Guides Association. Kristina, would you like to take over, please?
Hello to everybody, or in Croatia, dobar dan svima, pozdrav iz Hrvatske. So that means in English, hello to everybody. So welcome, of course, hello from Croatia. So just a second, I just have to turn on my presentation. So I am the president of Croatian Tourist Guides Association, that gathers 21 local associations from all around Croatia. So that means from the part well known as Dubrovnik, Split, Zadar, cities in Istria, in Slavonia, and Zagreb. So we are NGOs, but all established so since 2005, but we are really, really active. So why did I put this map? As you can see, Croatia is a small country. It has only around 4 million inhabitants, and it has around 5,500 tourist guides. That means if you compare it with the number of inhabitants, that means that we have, in fact, really a lot of guides. So is there a better way to introduce ourselves than a photo and some facts about figures? So as you can see, so located in the central Mediterranean Europe at the crossroads of cultural and climatic zones from north to south, east and west, I have to say it is a turbulent history of our small country from ancient time to the recent history. So Croatia is world renowned as a country with more than 1,000 islands, rocks and reefs, out of which only 67 are inhabited. So we are also proud to have 10 sites of cultural heritage and even 17 intangible cultural heritage recognized by UNESCO. So natural beauty and rich cultural and historical tradition directed us, of course, to the tourism. Just a second, I have to move my, I don't know how to put this, just a second, here. As you can see, we also have a beautiful, Mediterranean, of course, coastal Mediterranean climate, but also we have, in fact, different zones. So, as I mentioned, so Croatian Association is a network of 21 local associations. So to become a guide in Croatia, it is obligatory to finish education, which is specific for each and every region in Croatia. So talking, of course, about education brings me naturally to the next topic, activities. Of course, never-ending education. Of course, this is our logo. It was also made by our colleagues, so Tourist Guide. We are really proud of it. So we even have a hint. So we are really active. So here you can see one of the first photos of guiding, so in Dubrovnik. So for us, the most important is education, because as you all know, so tourist guides never stop learning. So we organize all kinds of education. So indoor, outdoor, or workshops, ex cathedra. And also, of course, we are really proud that among us, so we have guides that are specialized for guiding tourists with special needs. We even provide blind and partially sighted persons assistance during soccer matches and have them use auto-destructive tools to easily follow the match. So we are really proud to also be connected like that with our football team. So really, as I can say, well known. So furthermore, we also, as you can see here are some of the photos of our never-ending education all around. So we make videos, we make presentations, so even during the COVID pandemic. So this is the representation of our specialized guides. Just a second, I'm gonna move on. So, furthermore, we organize also a special event for our youngest population. This is one project that we are really proud of. It is a project of our member, so Tourist Guide Association in Split. So every year, with the organization as a partner of the city of Split, so we make a tour of the Roman Emperor Diocletian in Split for elementary schools. So the guiding of the palace takes place for 1,700 pupils, because Split has more than 1,000, Split is more than 1,700 years old. So of course we organize it with local guides. So after the tour, so all children take a part in quiz and the best one gets rewarded. So that is a project that is really famous, and we would be really honored if even in some other countries, so some other colleagues or associations, so also take this project. So, of course, we also have some of the projects that we are really, really proud of. As you can see here, International Tourist Guides Day. So except organizing education for our members, we also try to be an active part of a local community. So our goal is not only to familiarize people as to who we are and what we do, but also to get them know their neighborhood better. So having that in mind, for more than 15 years, on February 21, when we celebrate our International Tourist Guides Day, we treat our fellow citizens with a very special thematic guiding tours. So just a second, I'm going to move on. So as you can see, it's always organized all around Croatia. There is also, here you can see some of the presentation of our, of course, our colleagues. And there is one project that we are really, really proud of, and all the medias, in fact, follow us really, really great. We were really, really surprised that that is a project that made us really, really, really well known. So inspired by a very good feedback on one hand and unfortunate tourist guide legislation that we are challenged with, on the other hand, we started our most successful project. So it is called Get to Know Your Country. It is held every year on January 15, an important day for Croatia. That was the day in 1992. Our country was internationally recognized as independent state. On that day, so as you can see here, so throughout Croatia, exactly at noon, so we start with local guiding. So that event is extremely well covered in the media, in all prime time news. So we get the opportunities to speak out about our problem. So this year, so in the beginning of the year, as you know, it was not still, it was still, in fact, not the part of the year taken by pandemia. So we had 60 cities that were included at the same time, and more than 5,000 citizens, of course, came to follow us and to support us. As you can see, some of the photos, of course, of it, so all around Croatia. So I would like to take a moment and explain the situation, in fact, in detail. If you want to become a tourist guide in Croatia, you have to pass an exam, which consists of two parts. So the first part is a general part. Second, I will just move on with these photos. So the first part is a general part, national level. So that means about Croatia, history, economy, architecture, botanics, etc. But the second one is specific for protected areas in certain regions. Once we get a license, so we are allowed to provide local guiding services only for the region and protected areas that we are licensed for. So just a second, I'm going to move on where you can see some of the photos of my colleagues. You see, so it was really all around Croatia, and we are really proud about it. So in the same time, so foreign citizens from EU member states on temporarily and occasionally basis are allowed, so once they are registered, to guide wherever they want throughout the whole country, except protected areas, without any additional controls or education for now. Yeah. So the government intention is to change it by extreme reduction of number of protected areas, which is basically an introduction of a national license, but not in the way we have, but in the way that we oppose. So we, the guides, so in Croatia, are really, really very united throughout writing legislation proposals, participation in ministries meeting with the support of related association and the profession. We strive to influence the protection of the profession and heritage, and ultimately job preservation. Just to move on through these, some of the photos where we are really, really active, where you can see. So to be completely clear, we fully respect the free market of EU rules, but under the same terms. That means education and specific knowledge about Croatia or any other region of interest. So by EU norm, a tourist guide is a person with local knowledge, and that is not only about architecture, history, art, but also about everyday life, mindset, so as well. So also I have to point out that Croatia in the history, so for more than 1,000 years, was always under domination of the other nations. So, of course, in respect to our ancestors and all the people that were affected, in fact, throughout our history, we have asked our ministry to understand and of course to respect our requests. So we really think that no one can interpret our complicated history as we can. So our emotion and passion, our strength and endurance in fighting for freedom. So as I hope that you will understand, of course, the point, because who, if not us, of course. So guides will care and protect the heritage, customs, and respect diversity, which enriches us. So, of course, also we have to keep in mind the equality of our service. There is a way, in fact, we really support EU norms that were made thanks to big work of our colleagues in the World Federation of Tourist Guides and Federation of European Guides. And of course, we have to point it out. So our wish is to be united in diversity, but not be overrun by it. So, of course, that leads us to another issue, COVID-19. So, unfortunately, this year, COVID-19 affected all of us working in tourism, although results of individuals' arrivals in Croatia are respectable, to tell you the truth. So, thanks to the good control of Corona crisis, damage will be, however, significant, because 20% of total GDP in Croatia comes from tourism. Of course, guides were really touched, I can say, by it, because most of the guides didn't have work, so weren't working at all. So as in another country, so here in Croatia, we also have a government support, so for affected industries, which we are, they did it really fast, and I can say they did it really well. However, not all of the guides—
I have 1 minute.
Yeah,
you have 1 minute left.
Okay, so unfortunately, so the funding didn't, in fact, extend to all guides. That means retired guides and the guides who had registered, so tourist guides and secondary job. So the government has provided the self-employed guides with the help of 540 euros, which is about 70% of average month salary. Of course, so I know that I don't have time anymore. So as hard as time is, so it doesn't have to stay like it. So of course, let us improve ourselves, our knowledge, our skills, and let it to start for a new and better tourism. That is why even now, so we are making lots of videos, representation, and of course, education. And of course, for the end, we would just like to point it out. So cultural heritage and people are not for sale. So sorry to speak about our problems, but that are the problems that we were really touched by. So, however, during this pandemic crisis, we solved one big problem. We spoke about it to you as well. So that was a completely complicated legal situation. So we finally closed the case. We were working on for many years. From now on, the Croatian guides will no longer be considered automatically employed after obtaining their guiding license. So we won this battle, so during this pandemic, but there are, however, more to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristina. Wow, a lot of information there, and definitely in our next set of sessions, please come back and give us some more information about the legal case and your success story there. Thank you, Kristina. If you could exit your presentation, that would be great, and then we can move on to Christian from Costa Rica.
Okay, just a second.
Thank you. And after Christian from Costa Rica, we'll have Francois from South Africa, and then we'll have some questions for the panelists. Great, so Christian, all yours. Can you hear me, Christian?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. All right, good.
Perfect.
So let me share here. Try to share the screen. Okay. Okay, let me see. All right. me just adjust. Okay. Do you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Well, as Alushca said, my name is Christian. I represent the Costa Rica Tour Guide Association. It's the oldest of guides associations in the country, with already 15 years of being on the process of make guides growing in this country. And it's absolutely important to us to show you how much of the work we've been doing on minimizing the impact of these pandemics to the professionals in guiding. So just for a quick reference, Costa Rica already have the mature or the enough age to consider an adult on tourism, as being pioneer of tourism in Latin America, especially in ecotourism. However, has been increasing in many other specific niches to increase also the wide range of specialties that the guides can show on the professional background. So just for quick reference, also geographically speaking, well, we have a general map of the country. We are in the Central American Isthmus in a very tropical area, just 8 to 11 degrees north of equator. So we are in the heart of the tropics. And as I mentioned, ecotourism has been one of the main emphasis since the very beginning of our history as very famous destinations. So before pandemics, we had around 3 million visitors per year. So it's a big number in relationship to the 5 million inhabitants this country have. So just to enter straight to the topic, the first step we need to understand is how much these pandemics will affect. One of the main words we all remember in Costa Rica is what the Minister of Tourism once said, and we're entering into the season 0. Costa Rica has 2 seasons that based on climate. So dry season, which is the biggest tourist season from December, let's say, to the end of April. And that's when we have the high season. I would say around 75% of all travelers coming to the country, they do in this period of time. So precisely, the pandemic started right at the early March, when we had still a lot of work on the agenda, and a lot of professionals, a lot of guides lose at least half of the season. So it didn't really let us give a general warning about the need to save some of the incomes and make projections to attend this hard situation. So once the government closed the air traffic and incoming flights, we started activating the alarms about the possible consequences these pandemics will have. And that's when we had the chance to meet directly with the government authorities. So maybe you have read, Costa Rica is one of the countries, and this is important to relate, one of the countries with one of the strongest and more solid democracies in the world. So that allowed us to participate directly into the government programs to try to get the first solutions and visualize what are the possible solutions we may find. Government started a very quick emergency situation, trying to obtain connections and links with different companies and the other economic activities of the country in different sectors. And that's when we started to create alliances with private companies that required a bilingual, trilingual professionals, especially for the customer service centers and the corporate centers for attention of different kinds of situations. Costa Rica has a big sector of international companies that offer customer service in different languages and for all over the world. So Sykes is a company, Amazon, and in relation to this, we did a really good performance. In connection with another associations of professionals in tourism, we started a gate or open a gate for guides have chance to work with these and other companies. So they absorb approximately close to, I would say 500 people into different companies. So that helped to relieve somehow the big pressure on the lack of work right in the middle of the season. So what else we did? Basically, we used the time, tried to use the time the most usefully possible. So we did a lot of trainings in connection with the Costa Rican Tourism Board, which is the public institution that regulates and rectorizes the whole tourism sector. We did, or we offered a chance to use virtual trainings to accumulate hours for the renewal of the credential. So that was very important because we had the chance to train over 500 guides, 1,400 certificates, and over 1,200 hours of training. So all of these completely free, basically using our own time and making also participants of trainers and exposers that speakers that gave us their time without a cost. So that was very important. So one of the most important things that we're proud of is in connection also with the Ministry of Health of Costa Rica. We were the co-creators of the sanitary protocols for tourist guiding Costa Rica, participating very actively and making this process very, very efficient. So in less than possibly 1 month, we had a very strict and a mandatory protocol to apply in the country for the guiding. Now is of course of a very mandatory process. Roundtables and different meetings for reactivating different projects, and this is possibly one of the most let's say ambitious goals that we try to set in terms of how many participants we could have. So we try to incentivize as much as possible the cooperation between institutions to make guides create their own entrepreneurs, and of course have a different possibilities of growing and have better incomes. One of the things is very actually is a non-stop work. The board of directors of our association definitely started with a permanent session. That means they never stop working, looking for solutions and establishing parameters of working in terms of create the main or the most accurate solutions for this. Participating and creating campaigns to help guides, especially well, all kind of guides, lonely mothers, lonely moms, people definitely with very serious incomes, in coordination with Costa Rican Tourism Chamber and the Association of Tour Operators of Costa Rica and the private sector of the private enterprise, in terms of collecting goods, especially groceries for help families. We called it the Box of Solidarity. And that helped over 100 families that didn't have really the good conditions to cover even their basic needs in our guides family though. The social media possibly was the main tool we had for expanding our projects in connection with a very massive media. Radio Columbia Radio is one of the biggest networks of radios in the country that help us to expand our projects and definitely make these campaigns absolutely important and reachable to many, many guides around the country. So no matter if they're from any part of Costa Rica. I want to, let me see, I didn't mention, I didn't put in this, but one of the most important things is also to emphasize the role of a Costa Rican Tour Guides Association is doing with a code of conduct to prevent, avoid, and report any possibility of sexual harassment or commercial or commerce with children. It's a code of conduct that all country is very committed with. So our association also had a really emphasis on this, making our associates and all guides in general conscious about how important this part of the country or this code that is applied nationwide. Basically, that's what we have done. We still continue, countries reopening slowly. And now we are applying all these mechanisms of be visible to the society, and in coordination still with different private organizations and the Costa Rican Tourism Board, trying to recover part of what we have lost, and of course, continue on this. Basically, that's my presentation, and hoping that that we continue in this process, not staying stand and moving forward into this.
Great, thank you, Christian. And I know that you have done an amazing video as well. So perhaps you could put the link to that video in the chat box or share it on our YouTube channel as well. It would be lovely for everyone to see that video that you've created.
Absolutely. So Lucia, I think she's around, so she can help me with that because I don't have the link with me. So now my boss, I will call her my assistant.
Okay.
Thank you all, and it's a pleasure. You're welcome to come to Costa Rica anytime to show you some of the tropics.
Thank you, Christian. Okay, so then we'll move on to Francois from South Africa. If you could introduce yourself, Francois, and start your presentation, and then following his presentation, we'll go on to some questions for the presenters. Thank you, Francois. Oops, we just need to unmute you, Francois. Can you unmute yourself? There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
I think I'm done.
Great.
Okay, so introducing myself. I'm Francois, and I'm from the National Federation of Tourist Guides and Affiliates. Let's see if you can actually see the video. I think it's there. Alushca, is it on?
Yes, yes, can see the presentation. Great.
Okay, so basically, if we look at South Africa, the travel and tourism industry in a population of 59 million people contributed approximately 1.5 million jobs and almost 9% of the turnover of the country, of the GDP. So that puts it into perspective. You can see that there's a very nice little map of South Africa at the bottom. It's stylized. It shows you that we're on the southern tip of Africa, and our flag fits nicely over it. Right, so who am I? I'm the media liaison for the National Federation of Tourist Guides and Affiliates South Africa. And I've put 2 contact addresses and 2 websites. Our main website is nftga.org, but we've set up one called NFTGA-SA.org specifically because of the current situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right, now, going into it, what is the NFTGA about? Well, primarily we're there to represent South African registered tourist guides and to champion their causes within the greater tourism industry. But there's a very special word in there, which is and affiliates. And the and affiliates makes us very different from the typical tourist guide association, and we'll explain that a little bit later on. If you look at the South African situation, registration of guides has been touched on by several of the presenters. We have quite a stringent registration process. are split roughly into categories, which would be culture guides, adventure guides, and nature guides. The culture guide category and the nature guide category are very clearly defined. The adventure guide category is a little bit more difficult because there are a lot of activities, and that's one of the areas that we're working on, is to professionalize the industry. We want to bring all guides under the same umbrella, and many guides fall into more than one category. They are adventure and culture, or adventure and nature. So the professionalization of the industry was one of the areas that we were looking at prior to the pandemic, and which we're still looking at, but unfortunately, because of the current situation, it's fallen off the main priorities. Right, so how do we aim to achieve our aims? And I'd say the main ones are by contributing to sustainable tourism and to job creation. So how did we go about that? We went about it by engaging with sustainable environment culture, sustainable culture, society, and also economics. And these are all areas that we addressed in the Constitution when we set up the NFTGA. So from the first page of the NFTGA's Constitution, you can see that some of our objectives were a mentorship program for contributing to transformation and growing job opportunities. Another one was the Upliftment and Transformation Program, which is aimed at encouraging youth to become tourist guides. I'm not sure how the situation is in the rest of the world, but in South Africa, a vast majority of guides are actually seniors, like myself. I'm almost on pension already. Alushca, how old are you? Sorry, shouldn't be asking. But we're trying to get more young people into the industry. Right, then the other thing was establishing a unified voice. And to do that, we need to establish agreements with industry bodies and promote goodwill. And I think that's where the main difference comes in between the NFTGA philosophy and the philosophy of preceding guide associations. We've got a long history of guide associations in South Africa. South Africa is one of the founding members of the WFTGA, but we've never been able to achieve a national association that's able to promote tourism in all the provinces and really push it. And we decided that we needed to pull in industry and work with industry and not have a body that is exclusively guide-based, but one that promotes guide interests, but draws on the rest of the industry to support it. So what we did is we said at the core, we have tourist guides, and we set up lots of initiatives, talking to the provincial registrars, setting up WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups for things like guide vacancies, updating on road conditions. But then we started looking at the drivers. The people that drive us around. They're also a very important part of the industry, and nobody really cares about them. So what the NFTGA did is we set up a thing called the Drive Vine, where drivers can express concerns, and this can then be taken up by the Tourist Guide Association to support the drivers. It's not a union, it's a support structure. Right, then we said, if we don't work with tour operators, we're not going to achieve anything. So we started working with the tour operators and drawing them into our structure. And eventually, this is what the big picture looks like. It's a unified body where we try to draw in guide associations, industry associations, community initiatives, training service providers, and right at the bottom, you can see they're a very important component, government. If you don't work with government, you're not working. And that's what had been left out in the past. So in 2019, we founded the NFTGA, and the Constitution was signed in March, and we were registered as a non-profit company in 2019, September. Now, I'm going to quickly go through the EXCO members. I know this is not too relevant, but what we're showing you is that we try to be as representative as possible. So Abednego is in culture guiding. I look at cross-border, nature, and I have my own company. And that's part of it, is that we want to look at people that have a broader view. So SATSA, that's the South African Tourism Services Association. They are on our EXCO as well, and they represent the whole industry. This is one of the founding members. It's Jeremy Howard from the Cape Guides Association. He's not part of the current EXCO anymore, but he was a very instrumental member in the foundation. We have Jolene Duplessis, who's a training service provider. So she's a guide and a training service provider. We have a guide who is also a practicing lawyer on our exco. We have Maria Louise Kruger. She's again a guide and a training service provider. Speciality is online training services. Then we have our chairperson who's hiding away around the corner, Sonia. That's my wife, so she's my boss. And on the steering committee, we have a tour operator, one of the major tour operators in the country. And we also have Bernice Kelly, who represents FSAG. It's the Field Guides Association of South Africa. We have Julian, who represents another major tour operator in the country. And we also have Kimbini, who is a small tour operator and a guide. And finally, we have the South African National Parks. So those are all members of our steering committee. They provide us with inputs, and they also provide us with a voice in the industry. So that's the point that we're trying to make, is that we're not focused on only one aspect. We try to be as broad as possible. So in 2020, we were presented or afforded the opportunity to present by the National Department of Tourism. And we were all on track for our transformation program, our mentorship program, and the announcement of our clusters initiative, where clusters is bringing in tourist guides into local tourism marketing initiatives, such as chambers of commerce and local guide associations and local tourism associations. But then COVID-19 came along and interrupted our whole process. So if we start looking at 2020, what happened after COVID-19? You'll see there's a letter. I participated in a transport protocol webinar on the 22nd of April. And on the 22nd of May, the NFTGA provided inputs to the TBC-SA, which is the Tourism Business Council of South Africa. So we did this through SATSA and TBC-SA, that's the Tourism Services Association that represents hotels and industry. And Tourism Business Council has lots of members, including car rental associations mostly. So it's car rental, hotels, tourism services, and this was all to set up the protocols nationally. So we were consulted from the tourist guide perspective on transport and guiding and adventure protocols. Then after that, we wrote a letter to the minister as well, providing inputs to the protocols from the government perspective so that we could assist them with the point of view of the tourist guides in setting up the national protocols. So we've had inputs on recovery and also on professionalization. Right, then integration with the community. I think this is what Alushca wanted me to present strongly. And what we did is on the 20th of March, we set up an assistance poll to find out which guides were freelancers, which guides were employed. We started a campaign which we launched on the 1st of May to tell the government that of the 9,000 registered guides in the country that are active, very few would have any income for the foreseeable future. And what the government had done is they had set up a 200 million rand, which is not really a huge amount. 200 million rand divided by about 20, so say $10 million, a little bit more than 10 million, probably about $13 million for all the SMMEs in tourism. That's restaurants, takeaways, guest houses. In other words, 4,000 companies would benefit with 50,000 rand a piece. Nothing for the guides, nothing for the drivers. And what we did is we launched an SOS fund, which was our own NFTGA campaign. And we pleaded with the government to provide support. And we eventually got recognition and a 30 million rand grant from the Department of Tourism for tourist guides, which interprets basically to roughly 4,500 rand per guide. That's 1,500 rand per month for 3 months for freelance guides, not the ones that receive UIF, which is unemployment insurance, not the ones that are employed by companies. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of complications with this because the status of guides was not really understood by government. Government thought most guides were employees, but we have been able to get 1,500 rand a month, which is better than nothing. It's not much. It's what a good guide earns in one day. It's actually less than what a good guide earns in one day. But been able to motivate. So far, 4,000 guides of the 9,000 in the country have benefited from this. Another 2,000 probably qualify but have not benefited from it yet because there are still some inconsistencies with the program. And it's several months in already. The third payment has already gone out to some guides. Right, so this gives you again the overview of the unified voice idea. And if anybody wants to ask questions, I will stop sharing the screen because I think you can now, look at my face and ask me what you want.
Thank you,
Alushca?
Francois. That was perfect timing, just as the alarm bell was going off. So thank you for that. Yes, so we'll open questions to all the presenters from this morning before we move on to the second section. So that will be questions for TUREB, for Croatia, for Costa Rica, and then for South Africa. Are there any questions that other presenters would like to ask to each other before we move to the chat box? If you just raise your hand so I can see if you would like to ask a question to any presenter. Okay, I don't see Christina, Elisabeth, Christian, you've all lost your videos. So if you would like to ask a question, just put your audio on. Okay, there they're all appearing. Lovely. Okay, so do any of you have any questions for any of the presenters from this morning? I think we've received quite a lot of information. It's quite nice to see that, as Francois mentioned, the SOS activity, that everybody has done something along those lines, perhaps not in that wording, but there has been some element of fundraising or access to funds through different ways. So that's very exciting to see. And from yesterday's presentations as well, that was clear that there's a lot of resources being put into raising those funds. Viola, did you pick up any questions in the chat?
There were two questions, really quite two broad questions I picked up. One was, and I think it's directed to Christina, about are there any differences, or what are the difference between domestic tourist guides and incoming tourism regarding training, licensing, work conditions? So really a very, very broad question. And I think, Alushca, you hinted that this might be a follow-up session to maybe look into. But so that was, I think, a question from Yoni regarding differences of domestic tourist guides and incoming tourist guides, I suppose, in terms of training, licensing, work conditions.
Can I answer it?
Christina.
Okay, so as you know, so we are under European legislation. So that means that everybody who wants to live in Croatia has to pass the education, of course, as Croatians do. But everybody who comes to Croatia provisionally, so not oftenly, so by the legislation of European Union, doesn't have to pass the education at all. So he can come to Croatia, but he cannot provide services under protected localities. So that is in fact the main difference, but it's not just in Croatia, it's all around Europe as well. So of course, in some other countries, we were in fact happy that here we have already, so one general part of the exam, so that means like the national license, but we also have like a regional ones. That means if you want to go, for example, to the region of Dubrovnik, so you have to pass the specific exam of the Dubrovnik region, so department, so-called Županija, so here in Croatia. So, and with that license for Dubrovnik region, you can obtain, in fact, the license for guiding not just one town, but also more of them. So there is a reason why we don't say that we are close to the market, but we are also, in fact, we are more open.
Great, thank you, Christina. Maybe just a quick addition that really rings a bell with our own approach on WFTGA, that tourist guide need to have an area-specific qualification.
Well, you see, since I'm a lawyer as well, I have to say to you that, of course, we pass through all directives, we pass through all the judgments. So, and of course, we are allowed to have it. And I also suggest to the other countries that don't have it, that they can have it. So, because it's allowed by European law.
Great. Thank you. Francois, you have a question.
Yes, the mention of area-specific qualifications. We're struggling with that at the moment in certain aspects, because if you look at culture guiding, for instance, area-specific makes a lot of sense. So what we have in South Africa are 3 different levels of culture guide. You've got the ones that are very localized. Then you've got the ones that are qualified to operate in the province. And you can qualify for multiple provinces. And eventually the, let's call it the tip of the pyramid for most guides would be to be a national tourist guide, which allows you to operate in all the national provinces. Some of our guides operate as tour directors outside of South Africa as well, cross-border. And many South African guides have got licenses to operate in countries like Namibia, Swaziland, Lesotho, which are surrounding countries. So we can take groups across. But the same does not really apply when you start looking at things like nature guiding, because in nature guiding, it's not the province that affects your experience, it's more the environment that you operate in. So it's more biome related and animal related. So we have to address the biomes, not specifically the provinces. And when you get to adventure, it's again a completely different criteria. In adventure guiding, I don't care if you operate in one province or another province. What I want to know is that you're qualified to do abseiling on a cliff that's so high, or to operate a kayak in a river that's got rapids, or one that doesn't. So there, the scope is not provincial, it's actually activity related. So that's the main problem we have, is actually addressing different types of guiding and bringing it all in under one legislation.
So Francois, wow, you've actually just opened a topic on qualifications and regions, and I think that will actually make a fantastic webinar in the future. So Viola was taking a lot of notes, and I think that's a great idea to get our members together and chat more about that. We don't want to digress too much from our theme for today. I just see Suat from TUREB has his hand up, and then Christina. 2 quick comments from you, and then we can carry on with the rest of our presenters.
Okay, thank you, Alushca. And I think as TUREB in Turkey, we have solved that problem which Francois is asking, because mainly everyone who wants to be a tourist guide first needs to cover the base necessities, the basic necessities. After that, if someone wants to be experienced or an expert on whichever case you call, adventure guiding, nature guiding, they need to pass through the education that TUREB gives and also the exams that TUREB gives. But at the end of the day, the license stays the same. The only thing that differs that they are recorded in our records as experts of nature guides, adventure guides, even kayaking guides, or whatever issue they want. But it depends on the authority of TUREB again.
Great.
So we
Thank
control
you,
it.
Just a second, if I can say. So you see, guides are always connected with the territory. So for us, it's also the question of our sovereignty. So in respect of our ancestors and all the people that in fact suffered throughout history, we are the only one who can pass the emotion. Tourism is an emotion, you see. And that is the reason why I just said, of course, we want to be united in diversity, but not to be overrun by it. However, I just have to point it out. So I'm really, really proud that we are also the active part of the cultural roots of the Council of Europe. And I can only also support all the other national association of guides that want to do the same. So that's the way how we can be connected, but always with the respect of each other.
Thank you, Christina. Good point. Emotion, we are passionate. It's really, that sums us up as a sector. So great conversation. We'll definitely include this in the future webinar. We've highlighted that this is a great discussion to be had. But let's revert back to our program. We have some other presenters who are all very excited to put across their presentations. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Viola, our fellow Expo member, who will be handling the second half of today's session. Viola, if you would like to take over.
Thank you very much, Alushca, and thank you everybody who has presented so far. Yeah, but without further much ado, let's go to Peru. So Gerardo, if I could ask you to take over and enthrall us with the next 12 minutes on your journey through the pandemic in Peru. Over to you, Gerardo.
Buenas noches o buenos días. Good morning, everybody. Okay, amigos, just give me a second to share my presentation here, I think. We will share it. And right. Okay, so we come back here. Okay, amigos. Well, bienvenidos a Perú. Welcome to my home. Welcome to Peru. My name is Gerardo Pinto. I'm a tour guide for nearly 18 years, I think. Yeah, something like that. 18 years working as a tour guide. Is my profession, it was electronics engineer, but on the way I discovered this passion, and I'm here. No, I enjoy every minute, every hour, every day here. I think that's one of the main what you say is the profile, no, when you are a tour guide. Well, I'm a member of ASGUIPA Association. It was founded in 1999. There are two tour guides associations, ASGUIPA and ADECOPA. So in Arequipa, which is our region south of Lima City, the capital, we are about 1,000 tour guides in total. In Peru, well, we are more than 10,000. Well, this is Peru, just to give you an idea where it's located. This is in South America. Here, just to give you an idea, in Peru, we are about 32 million people. It's according to the last census we had in 2018. If we compare our population, well, Colombia is about nearly 50 million people. Chile, no, our neighbor in the south, is about 18 million people. Well, our population, as you can see, is nearly 36% of our population. They are in their 30s to 59 years old. Yes, it's quite young population. You could see from teenagers and students, we are quite large young population. In Peru, we speak 3 languages. We speak Spanish with nearly 85%, Quechua, 13%. No, that Quechua language is spoken since the pre-Inca period. Spanish, it was introduced when we are colonized by the Spaniards. And Aymara, no, only 2%. It's in Bolivia where they speak much more Aymara. Well, here I want to give you some idea about our economy in Peru. We have mining, agriculture, fishing, industry, exportations, and tourism. The biggest section in our economy is about exportation. So we export overall, avocado, paprika, garlic, onion. Then is, mining is another important activity. No, in mining, as you can see, is 10% of our income, and it employs about 150,000 people, right? Tourism, look at this and pay attention to this information. In tourism, we only, well, is 4% of the income in Peru, but we employ 1.5 million people, no? So you know how it works, no? It's tour guides, drivers, people who work in hotels, the little shop in the corner in the market. So this activity involve, no, quite a lot of people in Peru. Then another thing is communications, no, transport and communications in Peru. In Peru, we have 26 national airports, and 6 of them, okay, they are international. The main airport is in Lima. So a great part of these flights, international flights who come from Europe, America, or any country from South America, they land in Lima first. The borders, Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, Chile, and of course, no, the Pacific Ocean. We could arrive to Peru from these borders by airplane, by bus, and by ship, of course. And timings, no, as you can see, if somebody wants to come in the next few months, if you come from Europe, this flight will take about 12 to 13 hours, right? From America, about 6 hours, and from our neighbors in South America, it takes about 5 to 6 hours. Bien, so why people come to Peru? Peru, it has a lot of history. We have pre-Inca history in the north of Peru, Inca history south of Peru with, you know, Cusco, which it used to be the capital of the Inca Empire, no? Colonial history, Arequipa, for example, had a great Spanish influence. Biodiversity that we have in north of Peru, center and south. Just to give you an idea, about 70% of the 69% of the territory is the jungle. Yeah, so landscape, astronomy, architecture. So all the things, no? Yep, they are so important for us in tourism. Bien, Lima. In Lima, the capital of Peru, we concentrate about 9 million people. Remember, Peru is about 32 million people. So in Lima, we are 9 million people, where it's a modern city. Part of the area is from colonial period as well. But we also have archaeology, Caral, which is not far from Lima City, where our archaeologists, they dated in 3,000 years before Christ. Lambayeque, north of Peru, is another very nice place where we enjoy the nature, fishing, and archaeology. No, Sipan, maybe you heard about this, 300 years after Christ. This is Tumbes, is on the border with Ecuador. A lot of relaxing. We have very, very nice beaches. Some biodiversity in manglares as well. Amazonas, archaeological sites, Cuelap, no, this at the bottom on the right, the sarcophagus, Carajia, yeah, and Gocta, which is a great waterfall, 700 meters tall. Ica, this is the south of Peru, no, where we have the oasis, the Nazca lines, the famous Nazca lines, and a lot of adventure. And this is my home. This is a volcanic area. We have about 40 volcanoes in Arequipa. 3 of them, Chachani, Misti, and Pichu Pichu. Our architecture, I told you, we had a great influence from colonial period. The Santa Catalina Monastery, no, which is a small town in the city. Our main square with the volcanoes in the background. Misti volcano is that one between the towers. Our gastronomy, no, is on the left. On the left you could see the famous cuy chachtao, no, which is a guinea pig. Rocote relleno, the hot pepper, and a very famous soup, a shrimp soup. So finally, the Coca Canyon, which is one of the main attractions we have in Arequipa, very, very popular. Great part of the tourists who come to this part of Peru, no, easily 99% of them, they come and they explore. They do some hiking, you could do rafting, biking. So it's a really nice place. So Lake Titicaca, this is in Puno, which is a very alive culture. Cusco, okay, so a great place to end the experience of Peru. And obviously Machu Picchu and the Inca Trail. So they are the main attractions that we have in Peru, my friends. Madre de Dios, the jungle of Peru. And here we come. So, tourism in numbers. Tourism in Peru.
1 minute, please.
Oh, okay. Right. So in Peru, tourism after the terrorism times, okay, it's increasing little by little, about 9% per year. So I told you 1.5 million works with this activity. In Peru, we are 10,000 tour guides, 80% of them freelancers, and only 2% they work in agencies. Our salary is between $6,000 to $9,000 in comparison with teachers, which is about 9,000 US per year. So tour guides, they speak a very fluent language, very social, always open mind to learn new things, organize people, capacity to solve any problem, and new situations always are welcome. But with the pandemic, so we had a problem, no? So we were lost for a long time and we began to spend our savings. So is when we had to create new ideas and our friends, they had to do everything. Land farmers, ice cream makers, nurses, teacher languages. It's a shame that the main government, in spite of they spend 35,000 million US dollars to reactive the economy. So the tour guides, we didn't get anything. We didn't get anything. So the last program, about 15 million US dollars, they were used to, well, inject this economy for the tour suppliers and only companies who pay taxes. So my friends, it's a problem we have in Peru. The main government, they forgot the tour guides. So this is, thank you very much, ASGUIPA and ADEGOPA. Thanks for your attention. If you have any question,
Thank you very much, Gerardo. We will have questions again after for presenters, so thank you very much for the lovely attractions you presented and for the really quite sad news that tourist guides didn't get any support or tourism was forgotten. So I'm sure you're not alone, but let's go to Sweden now and see what our the Tourist Guide Association of Stockholm can share with us. And as I say, questions will be after the next couple of presenters. Over to you, Elisabeth.
Coming. Good morning to all colleagues all over the world. Very happy to see all of you and listen to all of you and getting very interesting input. My name is Elisabeth Daude and I represent the International Committee of the Association of Qualified Tourist Guides of Stockholm. You see our logo, you will see our board here. 2 members have changed since this photo was taken, but it gives you an idea. We are approximately 9 people in our board. Stockholm is the capital of Sweden, and Sweden is a country which is all the way in the north of Europe. Our city, Greater Stockholm, has 2 million inhabitants, and an important fact for tourism, for its inhabitants, for our life, is the fact that we are located 59 degrees north, far away from the equator, meaning that in wintertime, say November through February, it's rather dark. We're compensated in summertime when we have up to 18 hours of light. But trust me, we're paying in winter. So our association is a local association. We have at present 393 members who speak 32 languages. The association was founded in 1953, and our license is given after a 1-year training course the license is given by the city of Stockholm. Stockholm has traditionally had its high season from May through September. It has recently changed a little bit. You can see that it says we in 2019, which was not the record year, that was a few years earlier, 10 years earlier, but in 2019, we had 281 cruise ship calls, bringing 650,000 passengers to Stockholm. The question though, how long did they stay and what did they actually do in Stockholm for that time? On the other hand, no doubt this made up a very large volume and gave much work to our fellow tourist guides. I'm not addressing that much of general problems that we do have since I'm focusing on COVID-19, but I would like to say that obviously there is a problem, for instance, due to the fact that we have we're a non-regulated country. So at least half of the business would go to non-licensed guides who could be coming from other countries for just briefly for 6 weeks or so with almost no training whatsoever. And those are issues we are addressing, but it's a very difficult task actually. And yet a lot of our colleagues are working quite intensely with the 650,000 passengers that we took care of in the year 2019. And then came COVID-19. When we started to understand what was happening in March sometime, I mean, you know, there were rumors in the end of February, but in March, we really started understanding what happened. And cancellation after cancellation came in that went both for the cruise ship business as well for all other business. It was just incredible. It was complete emptiness, I should say, complete emptiness. The streets were empty. Now, mind you, I'm sure that most of you have heard about the fact that we in Sweden are a country which has had a different politics to others. Here, we were recommended. There was much less regulations, but recommendations from the board, which was responsible, the Board of Health, plus the government as such. So we were recommended to keep distance. We were recommended to wash our hands frequently, and we were recommended not to leave our home if we were feeling any kind of symptom. We were never enclosed. I've hardly worn masks. I'm doing it more now, actually, but that's my choice. It's a rather different politics to all over the place. On the other hand, the city was empty. It was incredible. I've in my life not experienced walking through Old Town, one of our main sites, that empty. I could walk in the end of June and it was me and me and me and maybe one other person, and Old Town is rather large. So that kind of led a feeling of emptiness and quiet, which most of us have not experienced. And sometime, I believe in the end of June or so, some of our colleagues must have had the guts and the wish to start doing something, and understanding also that, you know, economic necessity made it absolutely necessary to look for work somehow. So some colleagues started creating their own tours, seeing that obviously there's a market. The Swedes love to be outdoors. Why not create tours? And we've been certainly not good enough to do that before. And now we're starting, many of us, say about 20 guides have started creating their own tours, and very creative tours. We have one colleague who's done 30 different tours, which he sells through his webpage on the internet, which is excellent. You know, a complete new market woke up. Out of crisis came a new beginning. Other colleagues, though, have started looking for work in other places. We have people working in public transport. We have colleagues working in food trucks. We have colleagues working as teachers or training to become teachers. Others work in the care for the elderly, just looking for a way how to get income. Our board very early on addressed the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, saying, here we are speaking around 30 different languages. Do you want our help? We also addressed the Stockholm Region. The Stockholm Region is in part responsible for care for elderly, for instance, or care for other people in need. And they have had training courses for some people who wanted to get a short training, 6 weeks. But the region returned saying, you will have to do that individually. We can't take you in as an association. The Ministry of Industry received a letter. We only received the answer, your letter has arrived. That was it, actually. And then the unemployment benefits. You know that Sweden is a rather developed country. So one would think that everybody would get unemployment benefits. You have to have been paying a certain amount for many years in order to be able to receive those. But the problem is, if you are a sole trader, if you have a company with only one person being registered in that company, then you're not granted those unemployment benefits. If you have both, you're registered in two different tax forms, one being an employee and one being a sole trader, you would have to shut your company, or at least make it kind of disappear for a certain time in order to be able to take your unemployment benefits, meaning that if in July or August you would get any kind of work where you wanted to send an invoice, you couldn't do so because then you would not receive the unemployment benefits. At the time, we also signed a petition to government. We were one of many organizations of cultural workers saying that we want to be seen, we need to be seen. Oops. Parliament is at present, as we speak, discussing a proposal to grant a 12,000 euro grant to sole traders for the loss of income between March and July 2020. Some of our colleagues joined actually the parliamentary session where this was discussed, and we quite saw that many of the politicians do not at all understand our situation and don't even see us that much as people contributing to paying taxes, for instance, taxes which this year we could not pay. We did, one of our colleagues did a magnificent job doing a survey, sent out to all close to 400 members asking, how do you know, how's your situation right now? And the red section that you see down there is that in June, this was done from March through June, but this is the month of June. In June, we lost 100% of our income. And you can see the other little pieces of the cake are other sections where they lost 40%, 70%, 10%, or 50%. So a lot of income was lost because there were just no foreign guests at all. How are you worried about your economy, says this question. And the orange piece of cake says, yes, we are really worried about our economy. The green section says we're quite worried about our economy. That means half is really worried about you know, the income. Only the blue section says we're not worried. And then we have to understand that of the 393 members, quite a number are already receiving pension, but still keep working and doing an excellent job. And others have another job, because we must understand that of the Stockholm tourist guides, due to our short season, maybe only, I'd say, 40% or so would be full-time tourist guides, maximum 40%. Sorry. We then went to a press release, which was launched on August 1st. And that had to do with the fact that we had meetings. We had some kind of brainstorming meetings in a park in Stockholm. Through July, we hardly even met. We talked to the colleagues that we were closest to, but then in the end of July, we started to kind of get our act together and met in a park. About 30 colleagues met up, social distance, obviously. And a few days later, an excellent press release came out as one of the results of the strategy meeting. The Swedish news agency took on that press release, 20 daily papers picked it up, and television. The moment of fame for the Association of Stockholm Tourist Guides and tourist guides altogether was what happened afterwards. First of all, you saw the long list of different papers. This is one of the papers where it says catastrophic situation, crisis for tourist guides.
1 minute, please, Elisabeth,
Yes.
1 minute.
Another paper. And then we came on television. Can you believe it? The Association of Stockholm Tourist Guides is shown here as people in crisis. These are my colleagues. These are our colleagues shown on regional television. And I want to finish off with a few words as to what we can deduct. The downside is obviously the loss of income. This year we have had to redo our personal expenses, no doubt, or find new income. Positive aspects, as every crisis. For the first time, many of us could experience summer. We work so hard in summer, we don't really have time to experience the short summer we do have. And that was a real privilege. We've had more solidarity between the members. There are weekly lunches that one of our colleagues arranges, outdoor lunches in a restaurant, or sometimes even a picnic. There's so much creativity. We have tourist, in some sections that look a little bit like Italy. So we have an Italian tour with Italian lunches for guests sold on an internet page. There are tours in nature. There is so much going on right now for the Swedish market, for the Stockholm market, I should say. We're starting to work for a better future. We will be training sustainability soon. We've done cleaning of the national park last Friday, where we started in one little section. We're working on training and education. We were given some free courses that some of us joined. And one last thing I'd like to say, the digital meetings that we now meet, for instance, had it not been for this crisis, I don't think our federation, the WFTGA, would have started these kind of digital meetings. And we're all noticing we really want those. We really need those because we want to meet more than every 2 years on the on the conferences, and more of us can participate. So that's an excellent thing. And the same thing goes for us. Last night we had a meeting, which was a members meeting, which was partly digital and partly for those that could join there. And these are my colleagues. Oops, sorry, that was not my colleagues. Here they are. Sorry, doesn't want to. That is not at all what I wanted to show you. So I'll have to.
Try again, Elisabeth. Let's finish with your lovely colleagues.
Yeah, here they are. Here they are, the colleagues. I hope you can see them. These are the colleagues which have participated in the cleaning of the only national park within the city boundary, any kind of city, the Eco Park Stockholm. And they cleaned for a good hour and then were guided for a good hour and had coffee together. And we will start cleaning the whole park. It's 100 acres, so it'll take some time, I can tell you. We'll be working the next few years on this. This is voluntary work, but that is, again, another excellent result of this crisis that we have to work our way through. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. Yeah, every cloud has a silver lining, so always advantages and disadvantages and everything. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's now go to our next presenter. That will be our colleagues from Myanmar, followed by our colleague from Austria. And then there will be a question session again. Yeah, please bear with us whilst we're changing over. Welcome to those who have joined us recently. So really giving tourist guide associations around the world a voice on their journey through the pandemic of 2020. And next up is our speaker from Myanmar. Over to you, Mr. Yi.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff from Myanmar. So at firstly, let me switch the sharing screen.
Okay. The audio is a little bit faint at my end. Maybe let's turn up the audio if possible.
Oh yeah, I do.
Maybe our technical team with Sebastian can help too.
Sorry. So can you hear me now?
Slightly better, but still a bit faint.
Oh, this 100% volume on.
Okay. But let's go, maybe try a little bit, come a little bit closer to the screen and let's go. We will listen carefully.
Hello.
Much better, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Much better, thank you.
Sorry. Okay, now let me switch the screen on first. Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to Mandalay from Myanmar, and I am the representative of Mandalay Tour Guide Society here in Myanmar. So, oh my God. So my nationality is Myanmar or Burma, and my name is Yem Yaton. But when I am working, all my clients address me Mr. Jeff because they try to address my name JJJ and finally it's changed to Jeff. So just to be easier, you can address me, Jeff. I used to be the president of MTGS from 2012 to up to 2017, but now I am just the patron of the MTGS. So I am licensed tour guide, not only the licensed tour guide, but also certified national trainer, and especially for tour operation and travel agencies. So here is the word called Mingalaba. This is welcome words. We don't have to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, every day the same, every time the same, Mingalaba. And then where is Myanmar? Myanmar is Southeast Asia. In Asia, we are sharing with in the north with China, of course, and east with Laos, and in the southeast with Thailand, and in the southwest with Bay of Bengal and part of Bangladesh, and on the western with India. So we are among the two giant countries. So if we're talking about Myanmar, but most of the clients, firstly, they really don't know what the country is. Only one we introduce our country as the ladies' countries is something like Aung San Suu Kyi's countries. Then they would say, oh, yes, yes, we know. So in Myanmar, we have three big cities. One is called Yangon. Yangon used to be a former capital of Myanmar, but then about 10 years ago, it was forced to move to Naypyidaw. Naypyidaw is almost the center of the country, and where there is the administrative offices, where there are administrative offices. Then I am a few kilometers away from Naypyidaw. It's, let's say, about 200 kilometers away from Naypyidaw, from Mandalay. Mandalay is the second largest city of the country, and it used to be a very classical countries. Then our country is divided by the main rivers. We have main three rivers, but especially the Ayawadi rivers here. Ayawadi belong to the country starting from the north and flows almost in the middle of the country, divided into east and west, then flow into the Bay of Bengal. Then, so this is Mandalay, and Mandalay used to be our last, the former capital of our last kingdom. So these are the palaces, but they are all reconstructed. Unfortunately, they are all damaged during the Second World War. Then this is our registration of the government. Then here in Myanmar, we have three types of tour guides. I'm sorry, here in Myanmar it's raining a lot and windy a lot. So the connection is not stable. Here, just here, it's rainy. So in Myanmar, there are three types of guides. One is called level 1, it is business guide, and the number 2 is regional tour guide representing a certain region. For basic guide is only for those who are being a guide in the certain area, especially the small villages, especially representing to the tribal villages. Those who are not able to speak any foreign languages, no problem, but they must be able to speak dialect. Then the level 2, and level 2 is called regional tour guide. They might have the certain education level, especially matriculation level, and then they have to be passed. They have to be qualified for the entrance exam. Then they can be tested for 2 months course, and then lesson. Another one is level 3, which is called national tour guide. So national tour guides represent throughout the country. They can be a tour guide for throughout the country. Then this is my license. So fine, MTGS, Mandalay Tourist Guide Society. We founded in 2012 because before we were a part of the Myanmar Tourist Guide Association, MTGA. Because Myanmar Tourist Guide Association is set up with 4 different zones. Mandalay is a part of the zone. Then This MTGA is recognized by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, not officially registered. But we have about 100 tour guide members. Then in 2015, we officially registered from the Mandalay Tourist Guide Society to the Mandalay region. Then we became the official registered society here in Myanmar. Then we become a member of SIGA, Southeast Asian Tourist Guide Association, and the end of 2015. 2 months later, we are qualified. We qualified to be the member of WFTGA in 14 June 2016. We have almost about 450 tour guide members in Myanmar. So in Myanmar, there are different regions belong to different tour guide association. So the Mandalay Tour Guide Association represent Mandalay region. So our aim is to have gained and achieved more international competency, because we are very far away from the international exposures. So now the tourism is getting developed and boomed, but we are still having the crisis in the internal some affairs, so that we need to have some international exposure. So our aim is to gain and achieve our international exposure and cultivate more team spirit, because we need to cultivate our tour guide members to be able to work in a team, because we are individualists. So we trying to organize them and then cultivate more team spirit, and then to have care each other, because at this time of situation, for example, in this pandemic situation, we trying to support from our society, because the government doesn't concern with us. The government doesn't have even a care to us. So then, but anyway, we actively participate with the local authorities, NGO, INGO, especially on the matter of sustainable and environmental tourism issues. So this is our generation. The first, this is me from 2012 to up to 2017. Then the next generation is Mrs. Snorrer from 2017 to 2018. But because of her health problems, then she resigned in 2016, because our term is 2-year terms. So in 2000, after 1 year, Mrs. Snorrer resigned, then Mr. Win, the present president now. So our big challenges here in Myanmar is then the government is Rohingyas, especially this is maybe you are hearing about the Rohingyas, especially which is happening on the western border with Bangladesh. We are still having this problem. So because of this, and this is of course impact is getting bigger and bigger starting from 2017. Then 2018, we have most of our tour reservations were canceled. Then, and unfortunately, in this 2019 and 2020, we have another problem, which is pandemic. So we have zero tourism here in Myanmar. So that we have zero work. So we have zero incomes. So we are trying to survive, but the government even have no support. Here, very less interest of state and local governments. Even though we had a lot of discussions with the government and authority concerns, their interest is not even 1%. Again, there is no proper institution for not only tourism, but also for tourist guide yet. So that this is something we are trying to consulting with the local authorities. But in November, coming November 2020, and we are having an election. So we are expecting for the government, which has more interest to our tourism. Then, but as a country in ourselves, we have more hidden tribal resources, because in Southeast Asia, I can say that Myanmar will be the last country. There are lots of interest. We have a lot of natural resources still, but of course, most of them are already, it is gone already. But we have more travel resources, but we have very less tourists. If among the ASEAN countries, 10 countries, even we are less than Laos. Though we are bigger, the country itself is bigger than Laos, we are, of course, the tourism is very less than Laos. We have more tour guides, but the less tourists. So their work balance is not very harmonized. Then now we are struggling, then we are thinking about seriously beyond COVID-19 pandemic, what we will do. Because most of them, as the Peru Tour Guide Association said that, we are also having any interest of the government. But of course, sometimes they are just performing
1 minute,
the policy.
Please.
Okay.
1 minute, please.
Okay. Then, so we are now seriously discussing about what we should do in the future after beyond COVID-19 pandemic. So I would say about 20% of the tour guides right now in the whole country, we have about 10,000 tourist guides, but even Mandalay region, we have about 500 tourist guides, a licensed tourist guide. So they are having a very critical situation. So most of the senior tour guides are now thinking about changing life careers, because not only because of the tourism pandemic, but also because of the Rohingyas problems, and tourism is going down and down and down. So that about 2 years, let's say, we have not much good tourism, so that we are now thinking about changing life career. So this is not very good. So now we are trying to survive among ourselves. So we are now encouraging each other for expecting a very, very best for the future. So here are some our activities. So we are mostly focused on education for the new generation, and this is for Ayawadi dolphin, for especially cooperative fishing, and this is something very interesting here in Myanmar through the Ayawadi rivers. So we mostly focus on this. We have reading club, and every day every week we have reading. We are reading the books. Then we share knowledge each other. We have a music club, and we have football club, and of course this is annual meeting. So every month we try to have one educational occasion for not only for the new generation, but also for the existing tourist guide. So, and these are the activities that we have done in every year. So 2015, 2016, this is Ayawadi dolphin, and here. So in 2016, 2017, we have our occasion is more and more and more and more. So anyway, we are now feeling especially newcomers, they're very less interest on being a tour guide. So that this is a great challenge for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeff. Before I let you go, there was a quick factual question. We were asked, what percentage does the tourism represent in Myanmar in terms of the economy?
Sorry, the line is...
Yeah, we are asking how important is tourism in terms of the economy in Myanmar?
Well, tourism, if in the GDP, it's not very, very hard yet. I would say about, there is no figure for 2019, 2020 yet, because the tourism here in Myanmar is very less. This is not a main industry here in Myanmar. So that we are now pushing information a lot, because we have a lot of natural resources, tourism resources, but because
Certainly.
of management, the tourism is not,
not fully established yet. So, and welcome to WFTGA again. So you're a relatively new member, and thank you so much for sharing your journey, your difficult journey today. And it is a journey, it will continue. And our next stop
Thank
will
you.
be.
But,
go ahead.
I know the line is unstable, sometimes here and sometimes it is.
Yeah, I just welcomed you again to the WFTGA family. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all participants.
So our next stop will be Austria. And after we have heard from our colleagues in Austria, we will have a question and answer session. So over to Regina.
Hello, welcome to everybody. Great to see you all. I have to apologize not to have brought a presentation. I joined this meeting just a few days ago. I wanted to speak a little bit about our current situation. I think Austria is a quite well-known country internationally. I don't need to present our country, but I would like to talk about the situation within the last 6 months. Tourism is important in Austria. Statistics say different digits, but it is about 15% of the GDP coming from tourism and from free time activities. In Austria, we have a regulated profession here, which means you need to have a license in order to be a tourist guide. And we have about 2,000 tourist guides. Most of us are working in the cities, and that takes us to the major problem. The city tourism went down immensely. The tourism within the rest of the country, or the lakes and the Alps, etc., went down as well within the last 6 months, but not that considerably. There is a loss of, depends on the region, of about 20, 30, 40%. The loss in the cities is 80%. We locked down on the 16th of March, which was not yet our tourist season. But of course, we were no tourists were coming. The first guided tours were allowed from the 1st of May on for 10 people. So that was the situation, 10 people with a quiet walk system if possible, but there were no tourists there. What did we do? I'm representative of the Association of Vienna Tourist Guides, and we set up a program organizing tours for locals. We organized throughout the summer, starting mid-May to the end of August. We had a team of more than 60 guide colleagues doing guided tours in German, but as well as their languages, as we are covering more than 30 different languages within our association. And they offered also foreign language tours. And then as a third program, we set up also a series of guided tours for children, specifically for children. So the most successful tours were those for locals, for Viennese. And fortunately, we got a lot of contact to press, to newspapers, to television. There were almost regularly reports about the situation of the tourist guides. Some of our colleagues presented in different TV stations, in radio, in all print media. So we did our best to show our situation. Luckily, Austrian government supports freelancers for a period so far of 6 months. Of course, you have to formally apply and then tell how much loss you had in your business. And then you get as a recompense maximum, I think it is about 70% of the loss you had. So that means that's a program which ran so far for 6 months, which helped us to survive throughout summer. In summer, tourism went up a little bit. At least our neighboring countries were coming, mostly the Germans, a little bit of cruise shipping along the Danube, But since I think it's 10 days so far, the situation is going worse in Austria. We have more infected people, and therefore Austria, and mainly not the whole country, but very often certain regions or cities, for instance, Vienna came on red lists for several countries. That means everybody who comes to Vienna to visit Vienna needs now to have a quarantine returning to the home country or a negative test. And which means that tourism is now really back to the bottom. We are more or less in the same situation as in mid-March, with the exception that we are still allowed to guide locals and that we are still allowed to guide visitors from countries who have no restrictions. Within the museums, we are down to a group number of 10 people, which is very difficult to handle because mostly groups normally a little bit bigger. Well, presumably this situation will not change throughout winter. Winter is not the season of tourist guides, it's the season of winter skiing resorts, which will have a major problem most likely throughout this next winter. Tourist guides are affected concerning tours in December, which were very popular because we had the Christmas markets, a lot of tourism generated by visitors of Christmas markets. This will also presumably very, very low. And what is going to be a very, at least for the cities, a big loss in economy will be the total cancellation of all of our ball season. In winter time, it's customary that association professions, universities set up big dancing events. And at times of COVID-19, this will be impossible. So that means for us that it will be a very, very quiet winter. At the moment, the Chamber of Commerce and also other representatives are in talks with the government to extend this program of the grants given by the state, which are really grants. That's not a credit. We don't have to pay this money back. Well, we hope that the program will continue. So far, it is 6 months within a choice of 9 months. So out of 9 months, you can choose 6 months, and then you get this certain grant from the state. So not all of our 2,000 colleagues, of course, are totally depending on the stately grants because not all of us are full-time tourist guides. We don't have any numbers, but we think about half of us is doing this profession as only profession or as main profession. A lot of us are doing tourist guiding part-time. Others are already retired and touched to their pensions. So that means it's not everybody of us who is so much affected. What is happening except work? Of course, our tourist guide courses continue, education continues, and also the programs within the association, within the members of the Chamber of Commerce to do additional education. We have guided tours in museums, we have walks, we have also on the web page online lectures about art history. So that's how we try to keep our colleagues, keep in touch with our colleagues. And of course, we are also trying to communicate as much as possible. The guide associations, as well as the chambers of commerce, are regularly sending out newsletters to keep everybody informed about the different changes of rules. Sometimes rules changing every week, so it's very hard to plan for the future. Even if we would have any requests, we don't know if we will be able to do our guided tours as planned today. So the situation at the moment, it's a little bit stable. It's more stable than about 10, 14 days ago, but winter will be a very, very hard time. So to finish, I would like to congratulate to all of you who have set up so interesting programs for education, cleaning the gardens, whatever, keep people together. I think it's very inspiring to listen to you and to hear what is possible in these times of crisis. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Regina, and thank you, everybody. Really nice, inspiring way to finish. So this concludes the presentations we have for today. We had 8 really interesting presentations, and we have about 15 minutes for questions. One question that came up quite early on in our session today was the pandemic also had a psychological impact. I think Elisabeth mentioned the complete emptiness, referring to the streets and to our cities and to our countries, but it probably was also a complete emptiness in our minds and maybe in our hearts. So the first question, it's actually a 2-part question, is in terms of the psychological impact, what help and support did your tourist guide association give their members, if any? So support during the times of the pandemic in terms of psychological support. Some of you, a lot of you already mentioned financial support. So if you want to maybe summarize that as well. So if I open again and starting with Peru, our first speaker of the second session. So what support was given psychologically, and also again summarize the financial report received. And Christina, I see your hand up. So are you okay to speak after our colleague from Peru?
Yes, so as in fact, your question is really good one. So to tell you the truth, we in Croatia, we are really quite well bonded. So we are in contact every day. So we see each other, we support each other. But since you just asked this detail and this question, which is really interesting to us, I'm really surprised that really such a lot of number of countries, in fact, they don't have support of government. So I would just like to support in fact psychological help. So I would just like to support to all the members of WFTGA to support those countries, the colleagues from the countries that don't have the support of government. So if we could organize, and I would like to suggest, so if we could organize one day, so all members of World Federation of Tourist Guides Association, so at the same day, some project to support all the colleagues that don't have help. So let's be together, let's support each other. I think that would mean a lot to those people that don't have support. So I would really, so I'm just right now, I had the contacts with my colleagues from Croatian Tourist Guides Association. So we are quite united in that, and we would be really happy to support all the colleagues from all around the world without help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Christina. And that's really the support we are lending each other. I think we realize we have the same challenges, but everybody has different solution to it. So really what WFTGA tries to do is be the global voice for tourist guides through, yes, and oh, lovely heart, through webinars like this. But yes, I will take it to my colleagues of the executive board. So one day, one project, which might be our International Tourist Guide Day. As you know, on the 21st of February every year, we have our International Tourist Guide Day. So that could be maybe one idea. But thank you very much. Suggestion taken on board.
Thank you.
So that actually hints at the psychological support as well. I promised our colleague from Peru to speak first, and then I see our colleague from TUREB in Turkey has got his hand up as well. So, but firstly, over to Christian again. Oh, or Gerardo, sorry, Gerardo, yes. Apologies, Gerardo. Getting lost in the world.
Well, yes, well, I told you, at least in my region, in Arequipa, where we have two associations. Yeah, we did a work to call each other. Well, we have different ways to communicate. We like our friends, well, somebody told us that they made some boxes, no, with food. That's something we did, because on the way, some of us, no, some of our colleagues, they were quite shy to tell us that they had a very bad situation. So other friends, they contact them, and we gave them some donations. So it's how we help each other. On the way, if we had the opportunity to open another company, we call them to help us or to be part of the staff, no? Because this is something new we are exploring, but that's the main thing. And economical support, well, as I told you, no, it's a shame. The main government, in spite of we employ quite a lot of people, they forgot. But overall, because we don't pay any taxes in Peru, the tour guides, no, we pay some taxes, but just a little, just a little. Is the money support, it has been given to the people who pay the taxes. I mean the companies. Así es, amigos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Over to our colleague
You're
from
welcome.
TUREB in Turkey.
Thank you very much for handing me the microphone. Actually, I was looking forward to answer Ms. Gülden Aktugan's questions she asked from the Q&A section. And it was the same question if we had any economic support from government and what's my expectation for Turkish tourism. Mainly, as I mentioned before, we didn't have any grant, but also we had a loan with a very low interest, and it was the very first time that Turkish tourist guides had any support from the government in a situation like this, and none of the other freelancers had this support in the meantime. And actually, I don't think, because she asked, that's why I'm replying, I don't think any Turkish citizen will visit abroad, at least for the upcoming 6 months, other than the business circumstances, because as in the whole world, there is a recession also in Turkish economy. And I believe that all the helps, all the supports of the countries depends on their economic value, economic force, and most of them are doing their best. At least I hope that they are doing their best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Christian is just saying goodbye through us. Christian from Costa Rica. Do you want to say just a little farewell message?
Yeah, sorry, it's 3:20 a.m. here in Costa Rica, so you got to start early. So going to thank you all for all your attention and on behalf of the Costa Rica Tour Guides Association, and hopefully we get out of all this situation. So kind regards to you all and all over the world, and thank you again.
Thank you. And I will take away the boxes of solidarity and all the work you have been doing for tourist guides to find alternative employment. So that was my main takeaway from Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's a good. Also, in terms I ask about psychological support, we have done something similar. Some of the training we have done has been also focused on controlling anxiety and other symptoms of the crisis provoked by this situation. And we have already also a link with 2 psychologists in order to treat specific cases of more severe situations in order to avoid a bigger incident. So that's some of the things we have thought about too.
Wonderful.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Have a great time.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay, just scanning any more questions. There's some information coming in through the Q&A box. Our panelists, any more comments? I'm still, I think, in terms of psychological, economic support. But if there are no more comments, and also let me just check, no more questions. Yep. So do you want to, you had your hand up again, another comment from Turkey? Sorry, I'm muted.
I would like to ask a question.
Please.
Right here by my side, but there are any victims, any tourists 19 in the, if they're aware of.
Right, so I lost your audio there just shortly. Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. If there is any tourist guides of also COVID-19 in their country, if they have lost someone, some tourist guide of COVID-19 in their country, I'm asking that.
Sorry, yeah, finally, third time lucky. Yeah, I heard your question. We had yesterday, so this is actually day 2 of 3 days. Yesterday, our colleagues from New York mentioned 3 colleagues they had lost directly to COVID-19. Don't know if anyone else would like to comment, any of the panelists, or feel free, our participants, to put your comments in chat as well, your additions.
Maybe as WFTGA, we can think of a page, something like that, in the commemorate of those losses of COVID-19, because I mean, this will go through a century, and we need to remember those, I believe.
Thank you.
That's a suggestion.
That's
just a suggestion.
Yes, an excellent suggestion. Yes, noted again, and I will take it to my colleagues of the executive board.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And it is a cruel time, and losing colleagues, I mean, really losing them from this world to the infections and the illness. But we're also, I think, losing a lot of colleagues from the profession who now feel they have to look for alternative employment, alternative income. So that is one point that came through a number of your presentations. So again, thinking, what can we do to keep our colleagues in the profession? There will be, as I said, the journey will continue. Tomorrow we had already a day yesterday, and also the session will be repeated for more of our colleagues to give their views and their comments and share their problems with us. So in November, again, a similar session will happen. And by giving our colleagues a voice, and by also, as we've heard from Sweden, for instance, raising the awareness with media, with TV, through social media, through webinars like this, I think that's one thing we can do, speak for tourist guides and actually explain what our profession it is, first and foremost, and then also use our transferable skills, maybe to go into other areas, customer service, schools, and so on. So we are in it together. Let's continue to speak. I see Christina having her hand up again.
Yeah, me once again. I'm a woman, so I like speaking. No? So
I'm a tourist guide.
Oh, and guides too, huh? Okay. So I just saw the comment of Yoni Shapira, and I think that's a great idea. I would just like to support the suggestion of my colleague Suat. So I think that we can really, for example, not just to commemorate these colleagues that died through the pandemic. During the pandemic, perhaps we could ask their families, do they need some help? So you see, I think that the most important right now, so in the level of the world, is in fact to be bonded, to be together. So we really can support each other, and whatever we can do from Croatia, of course, we are in it. Yeah? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, wonderful. I mean, I think the first point would be that look at Tourist Guides Association, of course, to support, and look at Tourist Guides Association. Always feel free to contact WFTGA and see how we can help as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I think our time is coming to an end for today. So let me thank you. I mean, big thank you, first and foremost, to our panelists who stayed up along into the night or got up early. But also, of course, to our participants who did the same. It's nice to see, I think now I can see 23 participants at the moment who have listened in, who have given their comments. Of course, I would also like to thank Sebastian and his team's technical team for making this possible to allow us to meet all over the globe here. And really what came through yesterday and today is how much work the boards of our Tourist Guide Association actually have done for us members. And so I would also add a thank you to all board members of Tourist Guides Associations worldwide. One yesterday said it really was action stations for 6 months, for half a year, action stations, see what we can do. It was a complete new situation. So a lot of hard work has really gone on for our profession, and a lot of it behind the scenes. I would also, of course, now thank or give the best wishes from the entire executive board of WFTGA, from Alushca Ritchie, our president, who started off this session, who has now gone on to another webinar. My colleague Jean Ray in the United States, who shared the session yesterday. My colleague Arash in Iran, who sends us apologies, technical difficulties prevented him from sharing the session today, but he is listening on YouTube. My colleague Manu de Rosario, or Romano de Rosario, we call him Manu, who will be sharing the session tomorrow. And really, we are all here, and I'm Viola, the training manager or the head of training in WFTGA, and all our area representative global brand ambassadors who have also tried to do what they can in those difficult times. Those of you who have missed the sessions or joined later, there will be the link to our recordings will be made available. The contact details of our panelists will also be available, so you can continue talking with each other directly as well, really being the global voice for tourist guides in the world. And I would like to really now finish up by repeating what Suat from TUREB from Turkey said right at the beginning. Every day there will be a new sun. Sometimes the sun is beyond the clouds and we don't see it, but the sun is there. And I think that is true for WFTGA as well. So as Suat said, keep moving and keep continuing the journey. All the very best, take care, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Oops. Oops, meeting comes tomorrow. Okay.